Welcome to another Founder Wisdom Pod. We have David Starch with us. David is currently head of partnerships at Expert VR. He's also a podcast host. You can check him out. The Athletes podcast, it's called. 250K downloads and a bunch of YouTube subscribers. He's a co-founder of Cook Stark Management, and he represents over 30 female athletes. So that's quite interesting to me. Clearco, he's worked there for a while. I believe that was one of the dragons, and started a lawn mowing company around 2010. And I was telling Dave that he put that one to tuition. He made it happen because I didn't. I bought a pickup truck and a bunch of lawnmowers, and we just resold it all like 3 weeks after because we didn't know sales back then. Sad story. Dave also was, well, that's interesting. NBA. We're going to talk about that. This one is brought to you by podpar.com. If you want to start your own podcast and scale it, monetize it, I can help you do that. Go to podpar.com. David, welcome to the pod. Tell me a bit more about yourself, what you're up to nowadays.
Thank you. Yeah, I appreciate you having me on. These days are focused on Expert VR, the Athlete Podcast, and Cook Stark Management, combination of those three. As you mentioned, I started off mowing lawns and weed whacking and pulling weeds. And that was basically the hard work that was instilled at a young age. Realized that you got to get your hands dirty to be able to get stuff done. And since then, left after high school, went out east to Brock University, studied sport management. It's basically a business program with a sport lens, and learned there that I wanted to still stay in sport in some capacity, but I also wanted to be able to have the ability to have conversations, still begin to articulate my thoughts within the space, stay involved. And that was how the Athletes podcast started. Had a seasonal job, did that, worked at the Buffalo Canoe Club as well during that time. Yeah, fast forward 4 years, like you said, we've got 212 episodes to date, hundreds of thousands of downloads, millions of impressions, and get to have conversations like this on a weekly basis with incredible high performers within the athletic space, whether they're Olympians, strongest man, women of the world, top racquetball, pickleball players, you name it. We try and feature them on the show, highlight the highlights and the lowlights of sport. And then recently, obviously, in the past year, I joined forces with Lander Cook at LDC Talent, forming Cook Stark Management, trying to provide female athletes the exposure that they deserve and the connections to brands that us men have been privy to for decades. And, frankly, they deserve the same attention.
We both worked on golf courses, you for, I think, a couple of months, me for 5 years. So that was my first serious job. We both played hockey. Is that where your love of sports started, in hockey, as a proud Canadian?
Probably, yeah. I mean, I was always interested in hockey, basketball, golf were my big three. Played football, volleyball, cricket. At every point of school, I was trying to get in something. Did javelin in grade 12, almost made it to provincials there. Just like, wanted to always stay involved in some capacity. And but hockey was definitely up there. Grew up watching guys like Roberto Luongo, Corey Schneider with the Canucks. So I was a goalie, and us goalies always a little bit crazy, and excited to be a part of Vancouver's run in 2010 when I was a kid growing up. That was exciting.
Tell me how you scaled that lawn care business of yours.
Dude, definitely didn't scale at any crazy extent. Like, was just a monopoly on my street. That's all. It starts with one, and then the neighbor realizes you're cutting it. They ask for how much, you undercut what they were getting it done for. Pretty simple offering. If you're a kid, you have umpteen amounts of time. As long as you're strategic on your weekends, you learn how to put a receipt and a bill together, an invoice. Like, teaches you good lessons. You probably learned the same thing, right?
I mean, you scaled it further than I did, for sure. We printed the pamphlets and they never went out to anyone. I was too chicken shit to go door to door and distribute them. So you did better than me, for sure. But fast forward, I mean, that's like entrepreneurship, at least, you know, like the seed was planted. Um, what was your first and most serious startup that you started?
That I started. I mean, Cook Stark Management and the Athletes Podcast are kind of where I'm at right now. Like Expert VR's a multi-million dollar organization that's got military, government, uh, federal, provincial contracts that we're in the process of, well, we've been submitting, waiting on hearing back from. And um, in reality, my priority has been CSM, DAP, Expert VR, trying to balance those three, working evenings, weekends, and then, but like, the best or the your question was what was my most serious startup, but I think like where I was probably where it was the most kind of reputable was Clearco with Dragon's Den, Michelle Romano. Um, Obviously they, Series C, they raised at like a $2 billion+ valuation. So got to experience what that was like, joining that kind of organization, learning there, sales training, how to have those conversations, and yeah, you're dealing in finance, right? So it was an interesting space, new to me. I still got an opportunity to learn, apply some skills, and um, yeah, no, it's great. And but my most serious, like, I don't know, I take myself too seriously, man. I'm trying to not do that as much. So does that answer your question?
Sort of. Clearco, what's cool, 25x more female founders funded. So I guess your spark for helping female in either their athlete career or founder's career, which is somewhat similar at many levels, it started there. So what's the problem at that level, like the misrepresentation, and what's the opportunity in that field of either helping represent female athletes or helping female founders get some cash for their startup?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not at Clearco anymore. But then when I was there, it was, algorithm based, and essentially it was democratizing access to capital for founders, right? So instead of having a super intimidating situation where you're sitting across the boardroom from 8 other typically straight white males and you're making a pitch, as a female, that can be an intimidating situation, as any human being, that can be an intimidating situation. So not only are you getting this difficult individual facing this kind of experience, so now we eliminated that, and that was just based on data and algorithm that was put in. I mean, for what we're doing with Cook Stark Management, I have to give a lot of credit to Lander and what he's doing. He's been in the space for 3+ years, specifically with hockey. He and I, through conversation, realized, hey, like, we have an opportunity to do this for all female athletes, not just hockey players. So, we have future Olympians on our roster, and with the PWHL taking off right now, it's obviously exciting times, but we're working in the WNBA space and the softball space. So, really just trying to figure out where there's opportunities to make an impact. I'd say that's kind of where the spark probably was there prior. I just, you know, the goal with the Athletes Podcast is to educate, entertain, and inspire the next gen. I want to be able to look back and know that it was a difference maker in some capacity and made an impact on people in some way, shape, or form. And if I have the opportunity to do those things in my day and my bandwidth allows for it, then I should do it, right?
And as two guys, is it hard to represent women and really understand their interests?
Yeah, we both rely on our girlfriends a lot too. I'll be honest. I mean, I speak for myself. I shouldn't say it for Lander, but yeah, definitely, it's something that we've been trying to add to our team and identify ways that we can provide kind of a more front-facing, gender equal organization. Obviously needs to start somewhere. We've been working tirelessly to find the right person and had a couple fall through the cracks for different reasons. And right now we're at a position where we're once that happens, we're executing on it. And yeah, but no different than any other thing that I've chosen to done in my life, right? Like chosen to do, sorry. Like I choose difficult things all the time. So this is just another one of them. I don't know why.
It's a cool niche, for sure. And, you know, as a man, sometimes to understand women in sport, I mean, if I would step on a nice rink with these girls, they would just whoop my ass, you know? Same in a boxing ring, by the way, and UFC athletes. I mean, they're just on another level. So that's my mental exercise to understand their potential. And I think it's humbling sometimes as men, you know, we think we're all powerful, but yeah, to just look at these girls perform and play against them is what I would urge a bunch of male listeners to think about as a mental exercise, to situate themselves on the map where they are against them. They're probably way down below. And these girls work so hard. And I do I'm really happy that, yeah, basically there's a bunch of new leagues for women. The UFC was quite game changing, but I think it was Jake Paul that got like this female boxer paid like 1 million to be on the card not so long ago. So lots of progress in that field. You've
And
interviewed yeah, go ahead.
sorry, the other thing I didn't even touch on, and like, why people should be paying attention, brands, businesses, etc. Like the conversion rate and the engagement that these female athletes have on their social media compared to us guys is mind-boggling. Like the community, the network, the camaraderie that these gals have is like nothing other that I've ever seen. And maybe that's something that I've just neglected and maybe I'm not as good at and I shoved to the side, but like if these girls make a post, it converts 10x typically compared to what guys get. So, and like same levels, doesn't matter, sports across the board, it's pretty consistent. So, for brands who are looking to push products, drop a new release, it is definitely worthwhile exploring because these women also aren't having 10 brands knocking at their door all the time, right? So you can make their day, it's a mutually beneficial relationship. Why wouldn't you do that instead of trying to hound down the other third line NHL player that you has 5 other brands that are trying to get a hold of him, right? Like take advantage of the fact that there's all these women that have this attention right now and they have a very unique opportunity and you're poised to see a ton of value from working with them.
Very cool. You've interviewed a bunch of athletes on your pod. Any common denominator to high performance and any common challenges that these athletes face?
Discipline is just like probably the one that rings true. Every single person has their own form of like how they get what they need to get done. Whether it's systems, whether it's reminders in your phone, whether it's notepads, sticky pads, gym workouts, what like I've seen a wide array of ways for people to hold themselves accountable. But that discipline piece, going back, doing something day in and day out over and over again until you master it, is something that doesn't happen unless you're capable of reminding yourself and doing it every single day. Most people don't have the ability to do that, to stick with something for not just a month, not just 6 months, but years and decades. I mean, like Olympians will train for 20 years of their life for 10 seconds on what could be their only time at the Olympic Games if they're lucky enough to make it. And heaven forbid an injury occurs during that time period. Like nothing's guaranteed. So for me, it's been that discipline piece. Mental health just continues to be ever present. And obviously, like this is being filmed right January 30th. February is Mental Health Month. Bell Let's Talk just happened. There are so many different resources out there for athletes, I think, and I think they're maybe not known about enough. And the power of the mind is something that people day in and day out talk about. Some athletes know it well, some don't, and you can tell the difference. And in my mind, I think that there's just a unique piece about every single person that makes them super exciting and engaging and interesting to talk with. So I'm able to learn something from every person that comes on the show. And when it comes to struggles, it's that everyone is dealing with something in some way, shape, or form, whether you see it or not.
How do athletes deal with that usually, and how tough can it be to deal with an injury, for example?
I think athletes have tons of different ways of dealing with it. Some go harder in the gym, some do use a form of therapy, some will talk to their parents, some will talk to spouses, some will bottle it up, some, others will use other different modalities of training, cold exposure therapy, heat exposure. At the end of the day, like, athletes need to learn that there's more to life than their sport, and it's important to be aware of that, despite what it may seem in the moment. Your current state, fourth down, everything's on the line. Your next championship game is coming up in a week. Like, wherever you're at right now, as much as it is important in the moment, you'll look back in 5 years and realize there's bigger things now. I promise, but that doesn't mean that you shouldn't put 100% of your effort into it. And I think making sure that you know and identify what you want, your goals, and what you want to achieve in life. And as long as you're honest with yourself, you establish what those goals are. And you can look back and say, hey, this is what I wanted to do. This is what I went and did. And this is what I got. That seems like to me a recipe that should be good for life. Like, then it's on your terms. You chose what you wanted to do, right? I think at the end, like, if people aren't happy with where they're at, you have to look back on the decisions that you made to where you got and how you got there. And if you want to change that, you identify what decisions you need to make to put yourself in that position, and then hope you reevaluate in a couple months. And if you're at that point, then you've got your answers, right?
Do athletes make great founders or CEOs once they transit to the business world?
The, the best. The best. If I think providing they're like able to be honed in on like their one goal, mission, objective, athletes it's a superpower. If you've played a sport growing up, if you have that ingrained, like, uh, it can be a little dangerous when you get a ton of money dangled in front of you too, because people can work really hard and burn themselves out. So that's a whole other aspect. But I mean, I'll shout out someone like J.R. Butler from Shift Group. Sorry, they started a athlete agency, basically taking veterans, former athletes, turning them into sales professionals, tech professionals, and they're crushing right now because they have people who are willing to put in the work, and that's what companies want. If you're willing to work hard, put in the effort, a company's going to be thrilled to hire you, right? And typically athletes are willing to do that.
I've seen lots of ultra athletes on your pod. I'm an ultra athlete myself. So, what do these folks have different? Is it pain tolerance? Is it planning? Is it dealing with adversity? Like, how do these guys and gals crush 100 milers?
I actually am in awe. I think from what I've seen so far, it comes down to just like hours and miles and time spent running. I don't know. You tell me. You're the ultra runner here. Like, how many miles do you have under your belt right now? How often are you running? And I can guarantee if you're doing that consistently, it's probably more than the majority of people. Like, what are you at?
Yeah, well, when I don't fuck up my arm in the mountain bike accidents, I run, yeah, an easy 5 kilometer a day, like I don't go too hard, but it's consistent and it's uphill under the sun.
Okay.
It's always different training regimens, and then I go hard on the weekends, I can go on very long runs, which I tend not to calculate because I've calculated these before and it's juices out the fun. Yeah,
What's your
no, it's sorry.
what's your farthest?
Farthest, Ultra Bromont, 80 kilometer. Want to do, I had the 100K planned not so long ago, but there was like a Spartan Ultra the same day. So I
Yeah.
decided to do the Spartan Ultra, which are so fun. You know, it's the best, the most fun races I've ever had. What
I
about you? Are you thinking to jump in the game here?
We did oh yeah, I'm right now I'm probably at the lightest that I will ever be, so I feel like this is my time to try running, so that it's not as hard on my joints. I yeah, I need to do something. I've got to figure out when. Probably it'll probably be late this year. And then yeah, I'm gonna try and get a little bigger. But we did a tough mudder this past summer, and that was fun. Probably similar to a Spartan race. Like it's good to get out with people, right? It's kind of like CrossFit-esque where you have a bunch of people out there competing, working hard together, right? Like there's something about that energy out there.
Yeah, my first official race was a Tough Mudder decade ago. I'll always remember that one because it was on Mont Saint Bruno mountain in Quebec, Canada, and I showed up to the start line late, right? And I just passed so many people on the mountain, and my friend, which was supposed to do the race with me, I think had a panic attack or something, and even never started. So that was a weird start, but that's what got me started. I think running is so easy, so efficient. For folks that also tried Ironmans, Spartan races are so much more fun, you know, so much less planning, and you're cutting, well, you at your lowest weight, you said, meat, I'm weird, you know, I'm bulking up right now. From 150 to 200, I'm at 165 and I want to continue running. I want to do the hybrid build a la Nick Bear if you want.
Yeah.
Um, who in your pods impressed you the most, and why? What was their story?
I get this question a lot. I like I said, every single person has something unique um that sets them apart in some way, shape, or form. Some people that have some crazy stories. Rhonda Racich, one of the most decorated pickle racquetball players, sorry, in the US ever. She's the most decorated. She had an insane recovery story, like was mugged at the beach, came back, national, international champion. Um, you can check out her website, rondaspeaks.com, I believe. Mitchell Hooper, I mentioned, world's strongest man. He's like a animal, and his trajectory has just been insane from going down to Australia, competing in bodybuilding, running, like marathon, and now at the level he is. And then who else? Taylor Learmont was a really cool one for me. She's a Toronto-based gal, and she does calisthenics training, flips, etc. And she's like now an Olympian and competing at the world's largest stage. So I could list off 212 people on there, honestly, and I could probably go through details. Your audience would get bored, but um, there's enough in there, and I think it's worth checking out. Like if you have an interest in athletics, if any of this conversation has interested you, to check out the Athletes Podcast, because we try and bring on new people on a weekly basis, highlight what they're doing. It could be ultra running, it could be weightlifting, it could be anything in between. So yeah, I appreciate you asking your questions, bringing me on to this show. Did that answer your question there?
Yes, it did. Last but not least, your daily routine. What are your biohacks?
Oh man. Let's start. I sleep every night with my mouth taped. So I'm just nasal breathing. I try and do that throughout the day when I'm not talking like this. I am trying to eliminate any additional kind of electronics, EMFs, airplane mode at night, never kind of on my body if I can. Trying to avoid putting it up next to the head, that's for sure. Try and do some grounding every morning, go out for a walk, just like bare feet on the grass. As crazy and as weird as that might sound in the cold weather here up north in Canada, it's worth it. It feels good. We're electromagnetically charged human beings, and there's something to be said for being able to get grounded. They're making bed sheets out of it now, right? I'm getting ads like crazy on it about it. So there's that. Crush some salt in my water in the morning or before workouts. I take creatine. That's my supplement. I try and make sure to get like right now at least 200 grams of protein a day. Outside of that, I try and eat whole foods, take some vitamin D, omega-3s, and magnesium for sleep. Does that cover it all?
It's a pretty good routine. Yeah, I had my dosage of creatine just right before that one. People don't realize it's safe and it's a brain enhancer as well. It's not only a physical enhancer, it helps for explosion for sure too. Where can people find out more about you, Dave?
Yeah, LinkedIn is probably where I'm most active, at David Stark. I'm on Instagram at Dave Stark1. Twitter, I think is Dave Stark 97. And go to the website, theathletespodcast.com, check it out. Let me know what you think. DM me your favorite episode. And if you screenshot a photo of subscribing to the episode, I will send you some AP swag somehow to say thank you. And thank you for having me on the show, Charles. Appreciate your time.
Pleasure, my man.